them and tell them to come by. Okay, our intrepid AD has gone off to check Gather Town for the other working group chair, but in the meantime, we can go ahead and get started because some of this is something any single working group chair should be able to handle. Welcome to RTC Web at IETF 111. As with other parts of the IETF, this session is being recorded. You probably know how to join the Meet Echo since most of you are here. But if you would also like to join the Jabber, that is also possible at rtcweb@jabber.ietf.org. If you'd like to help take minutes, they're at the URL pictured on your screen or at the tool above. That's the note-taking tool that is the fourth from the left at the top of your screen. Note well, many of you have seen this a number of times, but in case you have not, this describes IETF policies in effect on various topics such as patents and our code of conduct. By continuing to participate, we expect you to abide by these. Thanks very much. Here is our agenda for today. One, keep smiling, we're nearly there. In fact, we've been there, we've come back, and we're about to be there again. I don't think we need a Jabber scribe per se, but if there is somebody who would be willing to relay from Jabber, anybody who feels that they're not able to speak to them directly to the microphone, for example, because they don't wish to wake up their household, if somebody could volunteer to serve, to speak for them, that would be very useful. Anyone? Jonathan Lennox asks in chat, I was hoping he was volunteering, have we passed the RTC Web 10th anniversary yet? Yes. The BOF was in March of 2011, so we are now past the 10th anniversary. All right, well, I will, Jean provides us with cake. Thank you, Jean. I will watch the Jabber chat as best I can, but if anybody sees anything in the Jabber chat that needs reflection and can do so, I would appreciate it. The status of the working group, recently rechartered, hopeful that it can shut down again soon. The only thing that's on our agenda for today is the update. Justin sent the slides probably an hour or two before the meeting, so we probably not too many people have reviewed them yet, but we'll review them in the meeting and hopefully make some tentative decisions for confirmation on the list. Is there anybody who objects to this as the agenda of the meeting? Any additions? Reordering would be a bit tough, but since there's really only the one item, but any additions? Okay, hearing none, we'll think of this as our agenda. Justin, would you like me to drive slides for you, or would you like to request the slide share and take over to drive them yourself?
No, please go ahead and drive the slides.
Okay, I'll stop the screen share, bring up your slides, and start again. Give me just a second.
Okay. In irony of ironies, the camera's not working for me here in MeetEcho, so you just have to imagine what I look like.
Apologies for being late. Thanks, Ted, for getting us going.
Sorry, I've forgotten how to make this as big as possible, so let me try and just adjust the size.
Sort of thing right above where you are, like the full screen. Oh, I guess that's not the problem. The problem is, never mind.
Nope, that does it. Nope, that's it.
Yep.
I can't see anymore, but that doesn't matter because my co-chair is here to watch the Jabber room on my behalf. So, Justin, take it away.
Okay, let's see. So why are we here? The recap from the last time, JSIP and Bundle both had their own thoughts around how offers and answers should be generated regarding bundling. And we also found that libweb-RTC differed from both of what JSIP recommended as well as what Bundle recommended. And the actual impact of this was most significant when using the max bundle policy, which governs how bundling is actually turned into an offer. Next slide. So, 4 months ago, we discussed this and we came to the conclusion that the easiest path forward is going to be to switch Bundle to use the JSIP behavior, which is to only include A equals Bundle only in the initial offer and not in answers or subsequent offers. This was the least risky path forward. And the plan was to then document also in the Bundle spec that if it did get a answer that was in line with the previous Bundle specification, that should be okay. We also said we were going to update JSIP to change max bundle, since max bundle resulted in behavior that we were no longer wasn't consistent with either specification. We are going to basically say that's deprecated, and we'll come up with a new name for the behavior that was formerly described by max bundle. Krister suggested the term must bundle. I think that's actually pretty good and to the point. So that's what I've put into this new version of the document. Next slide. So this is what we agreed upon. This is how the SDP should look. That will have, this is balanced, which there is no port equals 0 in the offer, but in the answer, you see the use of a shared port between the M equals audio and M equals video line. And there's no A equals max bundle or A equals bundle only anywhere in that answer SDP. Next slide. This is the SDP for when the formerly called max bundle, now called must bundle, bundle policy is used. We do include the bundle only attribute and a 0 port in M equals video, just like JSON had recommended before. And in the answer, there is no 0 port, there is no bundle only. Again, this was the JSON policy, but bundle has now, bundle now basically says to do this. And the term, the terminology or the name of the bundle policy again is must bundle rather than max bundle. Next slide. So here's the new text. There's basically 2 sections, and I'll just kind of leave this up here for a bit because there's a bunch of words here for folks to read. But this basically just describes what's different in the BIS versus the 8829. I'll just sort of leave this here for a second for folks to read and see if there's any questions. I see Eric and Q.
So this looks great. I think one more sentence might be helpful here, which is to indicate that the correct behavior is the behavior that formerly was max bundle, just to avoid confusion, right? Assuming that I'm not misrepresenting the situation.
Yeah, sure. Right. So that probably be good to put into the intro. I think on the next slide, when I talk about the specific text as it relates to must bundle, I think I may have included some text to that regard, but maybe that should also get pulled forward into the intro too.
Nate, this looks good.
All right, so minute taker, if you can just note that there, I'll come back to that. And then Ted, do you want to move forward to the next slide where we can see that text? Right, so this actually talks about how must bundle is the specified text. Eric, if you have any thoughts on what specific text you'd like to see in the intro section, let me know. Otherwise, I'll take a shot at it.
I mean, this text looks great, so I think almost anything.
Okay, sounds good. So, the main thing is just making sure that must bundle does match the spec behavior, or did I get your comment right? Anyway, so that is really the new text. There was one question. If you go to the next slide, Roman noted this in the email discussion. Largely, summarized that since subsequent offers do not include port 0, they have a shared port in a third-party call control case where one of these subsequent offers can be sent as an initial offer to an arbitrary endpoint. It's possible that something with like a shared port could get sent to a something that's not aware of bundle, and then we're back to the same problem that we were trying to avoid. The problem is it's hard to avoid this issue. Either we sort of move when we have port 0, and then we have the risk to existing apps that we sort of formally talked about. I suppose we could also add some sort of knob to say, hey, go in this specific case, generate an offer that uses port 0 and bundle only. But that would be some spec work as well. And my overall feeling here is that bundle has been extremely successful, as noted in the previous presentation at IETF110. 99.9% of all sessions where bundles offered are actually accepted. And the cases where it's not accepted are almost always just kind of legacy audio only devices where bundling doesn't matter. And finally, the fact that in a third-party call control case, bundle would have already been negotiated, and you would have a single transport over which multiple streams are being multiplexed, that then like the remote side would either have to accept or just get a single stream, because there's no option to really unbundle at that point in time. because you haven't proposed new candidates or anything else like that. I think we probably just sweep this under the rug. So just before we close the door on this, I want to see if there's any other thoughts on this matter. I see Roman and Q.
So again, I think this is fine. I just want to probably just have like a note saying that, well, this is not like any subsequent offers generated are not compliant with, cannot be used as initial offers bundle, and do whatever you want with that. Something along those lines. Just a note saying that this is somewhere. Just a warning.
Okay. Do you think that should go into, I mean, I guess bundle already has some text about this point.
Yeah.
If you have thoughts on where that text would best fit,
I'm gonna look at the specs. See, I need the warnings for somebody, so that they know that this thing is there. But like, if they really need it, as we discussed in the list, they can just they can munch as DP, but again, like the chances of anybody needing it are small, so it doesn't need to be part of the spec. Just need to be made. People just need to be made aware of that.
Okay, sounds like a plan.
Okay.
Let's get that in the notes. Okay. Move on to the final slide. I think there's a final slide. Is this thing okay? Yeah. So I think we may be mercifully at the end of the JSIP and with it RTC Web journey. Unless there are any other sort of questions or concerns. Hearing none.
A little quick, Justin, I appreciate that. Is like, so it's literally like, is this one of the things where we're done so quickly? It's going to be great because everyone's agreed and they've all read it. Are we done?
One other thing is there was a question on the music to review the bundle. So if people who are participating in RTC Web can just chime in and said that we looked at the updated bundle, looks good to the RTC Web participants, that would help probably getting this thing published sooner rather than later. So that's the only comment I have.
Murray, the floor is yours.
Yes, Murray, go ahead.
Hey, it's still so weird to see AD next to my name, even though it's been a year and a half. We have a document that was left over from the original work, the examples document. It was never published. It's sitting out there kind of in a dead state. I don't know how important it might be to reconsider. Do we want to do it here while we have everybody's attention? Is it not worth doing? I have no idea. I'm not invested in it. I just came up in conversation. I thought I would float the question. Somehow it was left out of the cluster and then it got abandoned. So
the question is Suhas here or Colin, do you have any more information about it? Because I remember we decided that we were going to proceed without it, and it was going to sit on the side, and then it was going to be AD sponsored because there was enough information in there to provide examples, and that was it. So that's where we kind of decided to move forward. That was the approach.
And then I guess because it got dropped out of the cluster and then lost, like it received no further attention after that. So it's kind of in limbo. I don't think it needs to be published if nobody thinks it's important. I'm sort of cleaning up loose ends.
I mean, last time we had this discussion, and I don't know if Suhas is here, so I shouldn't speak for him, but we had decided that there was a ton of information that was useful here for people who are actually trying to implement, because there's annotations for what all the things you need to implement, and we were going to go ahead and publish, but I don't know what we were waiting for on that. We had agreed to get the other stuff out first, and then it probably just the ball got dropped. If the document is in state to publish, my preference would still be to publish it, but you know, that's what I thought was happening. Like that was my understanding of where we were. So we can change that, of course.
So if we were to do that, is it reasonable to bring it through the working group for one last review, one last working group last call, and just do it that way, or like sponsoring it is the other option? But since I have you all here,
assuming this working group is going to be open for the next 3 or 4 months, I think that's probably fine.
Okay,
and we can run it through this process. So we can press the buttons on the data tracker to re-accept it in the working group and move on forward and get a working group.
I'll make sure that I'm not doing something uncharterly before you do that, and then we can proceed from there. And then
we'll close the loop with Suhas to make sure that everything is ready to go. So the document that we last call is the one to go. But it's really great that the JSEP BIS, like we're done, right? Like that's it. We're not gonna have to meet again in December. Or November. This is fantastic.
Well,
that's great.
We'll have to take it to the list, of course. The other thing I wanted to point out on the examples is the review of examples is quite difficult, right? Because it is a whole bunch of very detailed SDP review. And so it would not surprise me if the reason it got stalled is if we sent it out for review and people stalled in the reviews and it didn't come back. Because it is just it's a whack of different SDP arcana to get through. And it's great to have all that SDP arcana collected, but it's also quite difficult to find the right people to review it. So I suggest if we are bringing it back into the process that we solicit the reviews today and say anybody who's willing to review it, please send a note to the chairs today before you leave. And we will also go through and ask the same of MMusic as soon as we get a confirmation from Suhas that he thinks that a revived draft is ready for review. But it is a non-trivial review task, honestly, because it is a significantly more SDP review than textual review, and so you really need to sit down and swat up, so to speak.
I mean, I need to run in a second, but just to follow up on that, if we bring it into the working group and then you decide there isn't enough energy, or just no, you just don't want to bother, abandoning it is just fine too. I just don't want to leave it dangling if there's a chance that it could be useful to somebody. So however you want to handle it's fine. I'll work the chartering side of it to make sure all that's legit, and then we can proceed from there.
Okay,
Thanks.
It looks like we have 3 people in queue, hopefully each of them to volunteer. 4 people in queue.
I would like to propose that we do not attempt to advance this document. I have 2 reasons. One is the reason that Ted just indicated, namely it's a lot of work. And the second, I got 3 reasons. The second is, no doubt there are defects in this document which will not detect and review, and will then lead people to be confused. And if it's an RFC, it will be very hard to change those, and we will not do so, and then it will be wrong. Whereas if it's an internet draft, we can simply publish a new internet draft. Third, it seems to me the world has gotten along quite well with this being an RFC, and so like expending IETF effort to make it an RFC seems like a relatively low value proposition. So I think it'd be fine if it stayed an ID. It's not like the IDs go anywhere. We can perfectly well find them, and so I would recommend we in fact do not attempt to advance it to RFC.
I only wanted to mention that I did an attempt of reviewing the samples draft, and it is enormous. And I tried to do a careful review in the beginning, and then ran out of steam kind of like midway and only skimmed over the last pieces. So yeah, I mean, Timothy Penton is suggesting to divide and conquer, I guess. So if at all, that might be a feasible thing, because for one person, it's basically, I don't know, you would have to set aside like 2 weeks of your work time full time or something like this to do it.
So that's been done in the past, right? It's unfortunate this would have to happen in this document, but there are times where the IETF has split up the review for, you take the first 50, the next person takes the next 50. So if we can get a couple people, we can maybe people that are willing to review it, maybe we can split it up and do that to help save the weight of the review.
So we did split it up last time, and we split out sections, and we got good reviews on several of the sections, but I can't remember which, but not 100%. I can't remember which ones and which ones we didn't or whatever. But what I would suggest is we're going to do that. Let's just review the stuff we didn't get the reviews for on the last time we split. I know Magnus and Nils sent a ton of really good comments on that stuff that have been resolved, but that's you know, I will flag that. When you ask a set of volunteers to do an incredible amount of work for you, and then are like, screw you, we can't even be bothered to publish it, it does not encourage volunteers to keep doing that for you.
Justin, you're next.
Okay. I've spent a bunch of time reviewing examples as part of JSEP, and I'd be willing to do some review here. The one thing I would say, though, is my experience with JSEP, where we actually went to machine generation of examples, was that even with review, it was almost it was literally impossible to find all the issues. That the machine generation actually found a number of issues that we thought in SCP that we thought was correct otherwise. And so I sort of feel that unless these examples are machine generated or machine checked, there will be errors, and regardless how diligent we are. So I don't know if that's something Suhas has spent any time or has actually generated these like from machine or anything like that. But I just have some concerns that we just need to be aware that errors are going to slip
through. Eric, and then Bernard.
So yeah, I think I feel the need to repeat myself. Who is advocating for this to go to RFC? I hear a lot of people sort of vaguely offering to do some reading if it has to happen, but who is strongly advocating for that? I heard Colin advocating some people might be put out. Who are those people? Would they please step forward? Because like the fact that we sunk cost a lot of effort into doing this before, I think does not make a strong argument for doing it again, especially for the reasons just indicated. So like I understand that people may feel a little guilty. I feel like they ought to be willing to volunteer, but like we all have important things to do. So I'd like to hear someone like strongly advocate to tell me why.
Bernard, you're up.
I'd like to second Justin's concerns. I think having looked over a lot of the examples in the document, I doubt if they're automated with it, you'll find a large number of errors. Probably, because if anything, the SDP has also changed over the period, right? We've moved to new unified plan implementations and so forth. So I think it's very likely that an enormous amount of work will be required here, and that just the effort to automate the whole thing is going to be a lot of work. So I'm not saying it's not worth doing, but I think we should really think over very carefully whether we're willing to do all the work to do it right. And it's probably not worth it if we're not going to do it right and automate it.
Justin?
That we did build a Python-based generator for JSAP, and if we decided we wanted to proceed and we did want to try to assure ourselves that would be the examples would be correct, I bet we could probably adapt that to generate a lot of the things that are in this document without a ton of effort. And then maybe we don't need quite as many reviews, because we can be if we feel the structure is right, the generator, assuming that we got everything right for JSON, which I feel like we spent a lot of time on, we don't need to look at every single line as do the IPs match and all that sort of thing. So I'm offering to help there if we decide that we do want to publish this document and we do want to find a way to generate these things.
Yeah, reviewing the generator will probably be easier than reviewing examples.
I absolutely agree with that.
Are there other comments on this topic? Niels, you're in queue.
one word of caution regarding the automatic generating. Last time I read the draft, it had lots of the further sections basically said like, oh, we're abbreviating the SDP here for the sense of shortness. Since you have read the previous examples already, this is leaving out, I don't know, like the bundle parts and like these bits and pieces and so on. So automating that would basically change these samples like drastically to be, I guess, like to include everything, right? Because like telling your automator to like abbreviate things here and don't abbreviate them in other parts is probably going to make the life even more miserable.
Jonathan?
Yeah, I think I sort of agree with Ecker also, because it's not quite clear to me who exactly the audience to consume this is, because I think very few users of WebRTC APIs are actually, hopefully, constructing raw SDP. I feel like that would be, not a good outcome, for random API users to be doing that, as opposed to just treating it as an opaque blob. So, or else using some library written by somebody who actually understands SDP to do the munging of it. So I kind of agree that I don't feel like this is worth the amount of effort that would be needed to accomplish it.
Cullen?
I've already said the main thing I had to say, but I mean, just on the implementers, like people who don't understand SDP, I mean, you're right, they're not creating SDP, but every time I go to debug anything with WebRTC, I have to look at the SDP and I have to be able to try and understand it. And if our answer to them is go read every SDP spec, of course, that's impossible. They can look at something that helps them walk through what they're trying to do, the examples, and some sort of creative, something that guides them through what they're trying to do, that it does help find problems and sort things out at times. I'm not saying this document solves that or doesn't solve it, but look, it was a document that was constructed to try and show what's useful about the SDP, not be complete worked examples of SDP, right? Whatever, that is what it is, but I do think everybody who's trying to debug a WebRTC program unfortunately needs to look at the SDP.
Timothy?
Yeah, I'd say that the audience for this would be implementers of a stack. I kind of disagree with Cullen. I think you can debug WebRTC within a browser using the browser tools. They're quite rich now. But I think if you're implementing a stack from scratch, then examples would be super useful. That's a very small audience, though.
I guess what I'm kind of hearing is that without taking any kind of sense of a formal poll, is that like we're willing to have people review this, but we don't really want to keep the working group open to get through this process. So Murray, as long as you're okay with that, we can go through the process of making sure that we try to solicit reviews and get other input, and then basically hand it back to you whether you want to progress it forward.
So Murray actually had to step away. He sent me a note in private chat. Sorry, Sean. So let me suggest that one of the early things we should do is first check in with Suhas and see how much more energy he wants to put into this. Because if Suhas at this point is not advocating for publication and doesn't have the energy to put into revising the document post-review, then I think that's very telling, and we should take that signal. Once we've talked to Suhas, then Sean and I think we should take the action item to then circle back with Murray and confirm with him that he's willing to go forward with this if we solicit the reviews as AD sponsored. And I think if that's the case, then it continues with perhaps a little bit more review energy than it had before, but actually on the same path it was on when we closed the working group the first time, because we closed the working group the first time with this not complete, in part because the working group had, at that point, lost a good bit of energy. obviously we have more people here today than we had at that point because we really had gone down to just very little energy at that point. But I think the chances that we'll maintain the energy through the process of building an automated checker or doing any of the other things that people have suggested seems pretty low. So I think it's really, does Suhas have the energy to revise this in the face of reviews? Can we generate the reviews from the broader community? And at that point, we'll let or ask Murray if he's willing to keep going forward. Is there anybody here today who strongly objects to that way forward? Okay. It doesn't look like we have any strong objections, and Ecker, who raised the issue of advocacy for the RFC, is okay with that way forward. So I think let's call that the plan of record, and Shauna and I will first follow up with Suhas and then with Murray. That brings us, I think, to the end of both the agenda and the additional issues that were raised at the end of the agenda. So I'll ask the question, is there any other topic for the working group at this time? Okay, I don't see anyone in queue or any comments in chat, so we will give you some time back. Thank you, everybody, for your participation today.
Thank you.